and welcome back to the Optum Care Virtual Community Centers. Today, Rich is going to take us through a great presentation all about the power of social connection. Hope you enjoy it.
Hello everybody, my name is Rich Crislip. I'm the Director of Behavioral Health Integration for Optum Care, and welcome to another series on our Healthy Minds program. Today we are talking about the power of social connection. Now, why is this such an important topic? Well, the reason is that the number one predictor of your happiness and your emotional resiliency is the quality and quantity of your social supports and your social relationships. A lot of research has been done around this, and they find that people that have good social relationships and good supports and good connections actually live longer, they have less disease and less illness, and they are less prone to depression, and they just have a higher quality of life. So what we want to talk about today is that what do we need to do to make sure that our relationships are strong and that they're lasting? Now, the interesting thing about social relationships is that we all have this psychological need to be visible to one another. We need to be connected to one another. We need to be in relationship with one another. It's an essential need that we all have. But the thing about it is that oftentimes we tend to wait on other people to form relationships with us, or we tend to respond to people in the way that they're responding to us. But really today I want to talk to you about what are the tricks, what are the tips of having good social supports, but also long-lasting relationships. And there are tricks, and I wanted to go over a few of those today. It's like, number one, we need to invest ourselves. And so this is the trick of social relationships, is that we often think that our quality of relationships are based on how other people treat us. But the real truth is that the quality of our relationships is based on how much we invest of ourselves. It's kind of like you have to give to get. And so I want to talk to you first about opening what we call emotional bank accounts. And what this means is that you are intentional about, okay, I'm going to reach out to a certain amount of people this week that maybe I haven't reached out to a while. I'm going to invest more of my time and my attention and my goodwill towards others. I'm going to actually make a list of people every week. Maybe I'm going to list one or two people that I'm going to call, and I'm going to get to know a little bit better. I'm going to find out what their activities are, their hobbies are, find out where we can maybe find some time to get together. But I'm going to invest in other people. I'm going to take that mentality as like, yeah, I need to take care of myself, of course, but I'm also going to invest in others. That's the number one, is that how do we broaden and open and fill up our emotional bank accounts? Because when we actually take a mindset that we're going to give to others, we're going to reach out to others, we're going to see how we can help other people out, we actually release this hormone in our brains called oxytocin. I don't know if any of you have known that, but we refer to oxytocin as the love hormone. It's associated with healing. It's associated with pleasure. It makes you feel good. And what an interesting thing. We've all heard the saying, it's better to give than receive. Well, that's actually true, because when we do take on more of a giving mindset, that we're going to invest in others as much as we do ourselves, that we actually release a hormone in our brains that feels good and makes us feel better and actually is involved in our own healing. So open those emotional accounts. The second tip I wanted to talk to you about is what we call mirror neurons. Mirror neurons. And that's something that we all have, and it's an interesting phenomenon that basically means is that what you reflect out is what you get back. It kind of goes to that saying, what shadow you cast. So it's an interesting way to think that, you know what, I actually have power over how I influence other people's moods and their behaviors, but especially on how they treat me. So how this works is, and I encourage you all to do a little research on this and play around with this, is that when next time you go to the store or the next time you're involved in some sort of social event, is that I'm going to think only about what I'm reflecting. I'm going to have a smile on my face. I'm going to treat people with respect. I'm going to give them goodwill. But especially when you see people that may not be doing so good, that might be emotionally struggling. And I love this way of doing it, because let's say you're at a store and you see maybe that cashier or that helper or that waiter or somebody that maybe they just seem like they're not in the best of moods, that they're just having a hard time. Now, we could take that both ways. We could say, you know what, they need to treat me better. They need to act in a better way towards me, but that's not really building up, again, that goodwill. But if you use your mirror neurons and say, you know what, I'm gonna smile at them. I'm gonna use my body language to show that I appreciate them. I'm gonna use my voice to show that I'm a calm person and I appreciate them. You'll be amazed at how they will change and reflect more of that back on you. It's like saying that I'm gonna work the room. You've heard that saying, is that you can actually change the room with your mood. When you walk into a room, when you walk into a situation, and you're reflecting a positive, bright, friendly attitude, people will respond in kind. But if we reflect a hostile attitude, a bored attitude, an irritated attitude, what do you think happens? Of course, people reflect in kind, and that's all about your mirror neurons, which we all have. So try that out. When you go out and you're hanging out with people and interacting with people, remember your mirror neurons. If you're thinking, you know what, I want to be treated better, I want to have a better time, I want to be, have more fun, just know that's up to you. It's not so much up to the other people, it's up to you about what you reflect out. The third technique and the third tip I want to talk to you about is what we call dynamic positive responding. And you can look that up if you want. It comes from the field of positive psychology, which basically means that, we've been trained and we talk a lot about how to assert ourselves and how to speak up when we feel that things aren't going the way we want and to how to kind of, make ourselves heard. But we don't talk a lot about how do we actually spend a lot of our time celebrating with others the good things that are happening to them, especially when it comes to family and friends and even colleagues. Oftentimes, we forget that though everyone around us wants to be as visible as we are, and then when we report good things that have happened to us or good fortune or good news, we want to feel some excitement from people for that. But oftentimes what we do, especially with people that are closer to us, is that we fall into these pitfalls, is that we don't put as much energy into actually celebrating good things that are happening with others. And this is what we sometimes tend to do. Number one, we'll think of an example. Somebody may come up to us and say, hey, I just figured out a way that I can get a little bit more money back on my taxes. We sometimes can be passive. We can say, oh, that's good. But then not really say much else. Just kind of leave it there. Kind of show little interest, but really not ask more about it, really not celebrate that with that person. We just, oh, that's nice, that's nice. But then that's it. Think about it. How often do we do that sometimes with our closest people? They say something that they accomplished that day, and we go, oh, that's good. And then perhaps look back at the TV or go back to what we were doing. What that does is that makes that other person, it reduces their feelings of how visible they are. Now suddenly they're feeling, well, maybe I don't count as much. Now, that may not be our motivation, but from the other person's point of view, that's kind of how it feels for them. The second thing that we tend to do, and I see this a lot with, I always have to be aware of this as I work with parenting and with my colleagues, is that we can say, oh, good, I'm glad you did that, but then add a criticism at the end. So using the same example, hey, I found a way to get some more money for my taxes this year. Oh, that's good. Just don't blow it all at once. Oh, that's good. Don't lose it. You know how you are with money. So what that does is that criticism basically erases any positive intent that you may have had. They don't hear oh, that's good. All they hear is the criticism. And oftentimes we do that because we're thinking, oh, I want to teach, I want to help, I want to advise. But really what we're doing is that we're making that person less visible by not celebrating the good that's happening and erasing that with what we consider, well, I'm just trying to give them advice, but it comes off as criticism. The third pitfall we tend to fall into is that we could just ignore somebody, which is actually probably the worst thing that we can do. Somebody has something good to say, again, a friend, a family member, a loved one, and we just kind of not pay much attention to it. You just stay looking at the TV, thinking about what you're doing, not even really noticing they're in a good mood and good things happening. It's just we kind of ignore it. Again, it's not our intention to hurt. It's just these kind of habits and pitfalls that we fall into, especially people that we're closest to. So just be mindful of that. It's like, okay, you know what? When somebody has something good that's happened to them, even though it may not be that big of a deal to me or to you, if it is to them, I'm going to make good eye contact with them, and I'm going to make sure my body language is aligned with them, and I'm going to show some excitement, and I'm going to ask them questions about it. Well, hey, how did you pull that off? Good for you. What do you got planned for that extra money? Or tell me about how you were able to achieve that success. How great. Just doing that little extra positive response to somebody makes them feel visible and makes them feel appreciated. Again, going back to that emotional event, when you're investing with others like that, by reflecting back on them, goodwill and love, but also showing them that I'm going to reach out and I'm going to invest in them. But also when I do, I'm going to be intentional about the positive responses I give them, and I'm going to celebrate the good things that are happening to them. If you do those three things, I think that you will find incrementally that your relationships will improve, the quality will go up, but you'll also discover that you're opening up social connections that you never knew you had. Because by reaching out to others, by reflecting goodwill, people become more drawn to you, and you have the power to influence the amount of relationships you have, but also the quality of those relationships, which we already know is the number one predictor of happiness and high emotional resiliency, and also you feel better physically for doing it. So I wish you well in this. Try it out. I know you'll have success. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.